Hello, everyone. This is Derek J407 giving you my thoughts on WWE Wrestlemania 36 Night 1, taped a week ago from the Performance Center. This is my first time on video since the world has gone to hell. The last time that I came on here to talk about a show was Elimination Chamber, well over a month ago, and it just feels like an entire lifetime ago. It was such a different world when I recorded the review for that show, when that show took place, and looking forward to WrestleMania. It was a much different WrestleMania than the one that we're getting this year. Not gonna mention the you know what, but it is running rampant throughout the world, throughout this country, and it has had a huge impact all around, including and especially in the world of professional wrestling, as we saw here with WrestleMania not only being taped a week ago, but being taped and recorded in front of a crowd of no one, in front of an empty building, the Performance Center. This was a WrestleMania that was, one, supposed to take place in one night, and two, was supposed to take place in front of, 60, 70,000 people at Raymond James Stadium in Tampa Bay, Florida. But due to unforeseen circumstances, we'll call them, I don't know how YouTube feels about using that word, so I'm just gonna kind of skirt around it a little bit. But yeah, the Rona has impacted WWE to this degree, where the biggest show they have every year, that their show of shows, the granddaddy of them all, the showcase of immortals, all that cliche stuff, it was impacted in a huge way, to the point now where we have WrestleMania split up into two nights. It was taped and it's been in the can for a week, along with probably shows that are going to come after WrestleMania, all taped. We have these guys performing in front of an empty building, no people, no fans, there's no life to any of these matches. It's crazy. And given the circumstances, it's hard to really get excited. This is supposed to be WrestleMania. Like, good or bad, this is supposed to be WrestleMania, and there's a certain feeling of excitement and anticipation that goes into WrestleMania every year, and I can only speak for myself when saying this, but I didn't really feel that this year. I did not watch this first show tonight and think, I just watched WrestleMania. I don't know what you call that. Maybe it was the dress rehearsal before WrestleMania, but that was not WrestleMania. The lights, the pageantry, the fans, none of it was there. And it was one of the most unique experiences I've had watching a wrestling show. Because for all these empty building shows that they've been doing in recent weeks, as weird as it is, it's much weirder when you're sitting down for 3 or 4 straight hours and watching just match after match after match with no crowd, no big electricity, and knowing that it's called WrestleMania when it does not for 1 second feel like WrestleMania. It's very weird. It's a very weird feeling. With all of that said, I cannot call this show tonight a bad show. There's many things you can call this show, but there's many things you cannot call this show. One of those things being WrestleMania. I can't even get myself to fully call it WrestleMania, but I also cannot call this a bad show, because it was not. There were some very entertaining matches on this show. There was a lot of fun stuff that happened on this show. We had a ladder match with 3 guys who killed each other and busted their asses out there in front of no one, mind you, but they still put on a really good match. Sami Zayn and Daniel Bryan, for as short as it was, as brief as it was, and not anywhere close to the caliber that I know those two can really go at, they still had a pretty entertaining match regardless. That main event, the Boneyard Match with The Undertaker and AJ Styles, the way it was shot, the way it was presented, the way it was executed and performed by both men and everyone involved, I thought it was pretty entertaining. In fact, it was probably the most entertaining Undertaker match I've seen in many years. So this show was not a complete lost cause. Now, I will say it was not a perfect show. There were some questionable matches on this show. There were some questionable outcomes, i.e. Becky Lynch and Shayna Baszler. That's a head scratcher right there. I think I'm growing a bald spot on the top. Well, I'm growing a bald spot regardless, but I think it's growing even larger, scratching my head to the finish of that match. Baron Corbin versus Elias. It took place, so automatically that's a head scratcher. This was a up and down show, and plus this is night one of WrestleMania. WrestleMania for the first time ever this year was split up into 2 nights, and the card for this night was not as strong looking going into it as the card that they have set up for tomorrow night. But despite that, I still can't call it a bad show. What would I rate it? Let me get to the end and I'll kind of go over what I would rate it. But for now, let's just settle in. This is what it is. Let's just accept it. This is a weird situation. It was weird to watch it. It's going to be even weirder to review this show. But we'll try our best. So just hang in there with me. We'll get through this. We'll talk about what we just saw tonight. And we'll get through tomorrow night. And we'll recollect and reminisce about what the hell just took place this weekend in one of the weirdest wrestling weekends in my lifetime. And I know each and every one of your lifetimes. So let's just go through this review of WrestleMania Night 1. Believe it or not, we actually had a kickoff match on this show, and it was Cesaro versus Drew Gulak. No build-up, well, I guess build-up in terms of Bryan and Gulak together have been feuding with Sami Zayn, Nakamura, and Cesaro for the last couple of weeks on TV, so I guess that's your build-up. Otherwise, this was just a random match to throw out there, and it was really a nothing match. It was taped, so hearing Michael Cole on commentary was weird. You had in studio Corey Graves and Peter Rosenberg doing the pre-show duties, and it was very weird. It was a very weird setup, but despite all that, Cesaro and Gulak, they had a match. It was a match. Cesaro won using an airplane spin. He used the airplane spin on Gulak. He even managed to do it without holding him for the last couple rotations. So he was spinning him without actually using his hands to hold him up. It was just all shoulder strength. So I thought that was interesting. But he used it to get the win. So Cesaro with the win on the kickoff match. The proper show, the show proper, I should phrase it, opened with Stephanie McMahon basically giving us a PSA talking about how this is going to be a very different WrestleMania and all that kind of stuff due to the circumstances and all that. And they did a really cool thing with America the Beautiful. They had like a tribute compilation video compiled together of past performances of America the Beautiful. So like people like Aretha Franklin, Ray Charles, Little Richard, Michelle Williams, John Legend, the Boys Choir of Harlem back at WrestleMania in 2004, WrestleMania 20. A bunch of different people who have performed it, like just all splotted together, intersected together, and all that kind of stuff, compiled to sing America the Beautiful. So I thought that was a really cool way to start it. And then, of course, the host of WrestleMania this year, Rob Gronkowski, he was there to open things up along with Mojo Rawley, and they appeared maybe a handful of other times throughout the night, but that was otherwise no real presence from them throughout the rest of the show. And then we went right into the opening match, which was for the WWE Women's Tag Team Championships. Asuka and Kairi Sane, the Kabuki Warriors, defending against Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross. Not a bad match to open the show. This was the first matchup, so right out the gate, it was very weird not having a crowd, although we felt that with Gulak and Cesaro, and we felt that recently on Raw and SmackDown in recent weeks. But it's still weird knowing that this is the opening match of WrestleMania. A championship is on the line. It's a championship that don't mean a damn, but it's still a championship nonetheless. And it just feels weird that there's no crowd investment in it. But in place of that, we had very loud women. Kairi Sane and Asuka were very loud throughout the match, talking much smack in Japanese. So we had at least that. Though, in case you couldn't tell, this was edited and was taped. There was a very unique cut in this match where Nikki went for a pin on Asuka, and the 2 count was held up for a very long time. Not extremely long, but long enough to where it was broken up by a diving elbow from Kairi Sane. So that was the first real indicator, aside from Michael Cole's commentary, which looked like it was recorded voiceover. That was one of the first real, blatant, obvious signs that this was taped. But we geared down towards the finish. We see Kairi and Asuka, they almost collide into each other. Kairi was going for a move on Nikki Cross, but Nikki Cross moved out of the way. Asuka and Kairi almost collide. Nikki Cross disposes of Asuka, launches her shoulder first into the steel post. Nikki hits a spinning neck breaker on Kairi, then tags in Alexa. Alexa goes up top, comes down with Twisted Bliss, and gets the win. So herself and Nikki Cross are the first ever two-time women's tag team champions in WWE. So big win for them, big title change. The first of only 2 title changes on this show. But yeah, like I said, it was a pretty decent match, a pretty decent way to open the show. Weird as it was, the whole show was weird, so we might as well just get used to saying it and thinking that now. Up next, we had Baron Corbin versus Elias. Because when I think WrestleMania, I think Baron Corbin versus Elias. That is a WrestleMania caliber match right there. So Corbin comes out, he's on the microphone, telling the referee to raise his hand because he should win by forfeit, because he murdered Elias a few weeks prior on SmackDown during that segment where he used his scepter to knock Elias off of that pedestal platform in the PC, crashed down 15 feet on a mat or some soft bedding thing that they removed when they edited it, because of course it was taped. But Elias came out, strummed the guitar. He and Corbin started to fight in the entranceway, and he even used his guitar and crashed it over Corbin's back, all before the bell rang. So the match starts eventually, and it's a match. Not only is it a match, it is a match involving Baron Corbin and Elias, so you can't really expect it to be all that good, and it was not. It was quite interesting. This was a taped show, yet you couldn't work around some of the botches and missed moves, like moves that we're supposed to believe connected, even though they really didn't, like a couple of punches from Corbin or some knees from Elias. It was very, very eye-opening and very distracting. But in the end, Corbin, he attempted to cheat, but the referee caught him, and he was arguing with the referee. He was going back and forth with her, and then he ended up getting rolled up by Elias. Elias grabbed the tights and got the 1-2-3. So Elias cheated to beat Baron Corbin. I assume this will continue the feud. Not that I have much interest in seeing it continue beyond this point, but it looks like it will. Up next, shocking that it was happening this early, but nonetheless, Becky Lynch defending the Raw Women's Championship against Shayna Baszler. One of the more promoted, hyped up women's matches heading into this show, and matches overall. This was a match that has been built up since Survivor Series at the latest. Honestly, this build-up really started all the way a year ago when Becky first won the Raw Women's Championship in the main event of WrestleMania last year. She beat Ronda Rousey, who of course is close friends with Shayna Baszler. Ever since then, this has been a match that people have been speculating and have talked about, and a lot of people wanting to take place at WrestleMania this year. And we got it. In the build-up to this match, A lot of people have not been overly impressed with Shayna. Their overall presentation with her has been up and down. She debuted on Raw, biting a chunk out of Becky's neck, and then she went on to the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view and decimated every woman in that match and eliminated all of them, mowed through the Raw women's division basically, to set up this match here. And what we got was okay. It was not good. It was far from great. It was just very, very, very okay. And yeah, I don't really have a whole lot positive to say about this match because not a whole lot positive was given in this match. It was very short, which I was hoping it would be, but I was hoping it would be short for a different outcome, or leading to a different outcome than what we got. At one point, Baszler was beating the hell out of Becky. She locked her in the Karafuda clutch while on the ring apron. They were both on the outside. She had Becky hung upside down and was just ramming her and swinging her head first into the announce table. I think she did it like 2 times. So Becky is just getting the brakes beaten off of her. Gets back in the ring, and Shayna locks in the Karafuda clutch. Now they're standing. It's a standing Karafuda clutch, but still, she's locking her in. She's ragdolling her. Becky is fading, and then she gets on the ground, and she goes to lean back to cinch it in properly, but in doing so, Becky kind of pulls over and rolls through and gets a roll-up on Shayna and gets the 1-2-3. Becky Lynch retains her Raw Women's Championship and it officially passes 1 full year as the Raw Women's Champion. Becky uses a roll-up to beat Shayna Baszler to retain the Women's Championship at WrestleMania. Very divisive finish. Not a lot of people agreed with this finish. Honestly, I didn't either. I don't know what the mindset or thought process was in designing this as the ending of this match and beating Shayna Baszler. Beating her regardless, but especially beating her this way. You bring her in, she looks like a monster, a killer, all throughout the build-up, at least a majority of it. Like I said, the Elimination Chamber, she just mows through the entire women's division. She gets to Becky. Becky, up to this point, has faced everyone there is to face. She vanquished Ronda at WrestleMania last year. She got past Charlotte. She went through Lacey Evans. She went through Natalya. She went through Sasha Banks. She went through Asuka. She's gone through all the big challenges there were for her to go through. There's no one else. So you get to Shayna Baszler, who seems like the perfect person, the perfect foil for Becky to stop her in her tracks and knock her down a peg and take the championship from her, and we get a finish like this. So I don't know if it's because there was no crowd and that altered their decision making, but yeah, I was not a fan of the finish here. I did not like seeing Shayna just lose like that. She just lost. It wasn't even like she beat Becky up afterwards. She just lost, and then she tucked her tail between her legs. She had her head down. She was pissed, and then she just left. Becky's standing there celebrating, and then next segment. It's like, it was very underwhelming. It was a very abrupt finish. It was very flat. On a show where every match feels flat because there's no crowd. This one felt even more flat because of that finish. And even before that, the match itself, the chemistry they have, just not really there. Maybe if a crowd was there to really get behind it and like really cheer their asses off for Becky or really boo Shayna, maybe that would have made it different. But without the crowd, their chemistry was pretty dull. And then you get a finish like that, which just was not good. So I don't know where they go from here. But yeah, not really all that great. They showed a commercial announcing a new limited series coming to the WWE Network, and it's about The Undertaker. It's called The Undertaker, The Last Ride. It is showing Undertaker training. It's interviewing different people in his life, his wife, Vince McMahon, some other colleagues and friends, and of course the Undertaker himself, training, getting ready for his last match, whenever the hell that'll be. But it was just a very real look at the Undertaker, which we've been getting a lot of recently. So I'm intrigued. There's supposed to be a special look tomorrow night following WrestleMania, along with a 24 special for Edge. So I don't know when the series itself will start. It's not just a full-on documentary. It's apparently a series. So I don't know when it's supposed to start, but I'm looking forward to it. Up next, Intercontinental Championship on the line. Sami Zayn defending against Daniel Bryan. Of course, Zayn was out there with Cesaro and Nakamura, so there was plenty of running and hiding from Bryan and hiding behind Nakamura and hiding behind Cesaro, until eventually Drew Gulak, who has been basically Bryan's coach in recent weeks, he took both of them out. He dumped them over the barricade and they were a non-factor, and Bryan proceeded to beat the holy hell out of Sami Zayn for the next few minutes. And when this happened, I just looked at it like, unless Bryan just locks in the yes lock right here and now and taps out Sami Zayn, the longer this goes on, the more obvious it's going to be that Bryan is not winning this match. And the beating continued. And it continued on and on and on. It was entertaining, you know. Sami Zayn, finally somebody is shutting up Sami Zayn, but it's like, he's getting beat down. Bryan is firmly in control. Cesaro and Nakamura are nowhere to be seen right now. It's like, this is tailor-made for a Sami Zayn finish. And sure enough, lo and behold, Nakamura and Cesaro reappear. They dispose of Drew Gulak. Bryan dives out to the ring to take out both men. Then he gets back in the ring, goes up top, is coming off the top rope with some big diving move on Sami Zayn, but in midair he gets caught with a haluva kick from Sami Zayn. Sami gets the 1-2-3 and he retains his Intercontinental Championship. So it was a fun little entertaining match for what it was. Nothing along the lines of what you would expect from Sami Zayn and Daniel Bryan. Maybe expecting a little more El Generico Bryan Danielson instead of WWE-ized story plot shit with Sami Zayn and Daniel Bryan, but for what it was, I thought it was okay. It was a fun little thing. So no harm, no foul in my opinion. Up next was what was probably the best match of the night. It was a triple threat ladder match for the SmackDown Tag Team titles. A triple threat match for tag team titles between three singles competitors. We had Kofi Kingston representing the New Day. We had Jimmy Uso representing the Usos. And of course, one half of the tag team champions, John Morrison, wrestling on behalf of himself and The Miz. Of course, this was supposed to be a tag team triple threat with all the teams involved, but The Miz showed up to the tapings sick. So he did not compete in the match. And based on rumors and speculation, sounds like because The Miz showed up to work sick, that's what indirectly or directly led to Roman Reigns pulling out of this show. So that had an impact on this match, and they had to reformat it. Of course, they didn't explain why the three men were representing their teams. They did nothing to explain that, but that wasn't the only thing they didn't explain. We'll get to that later. But, yeah, these three guys, it's Kofi Kingston, it's Jimmy Uso, one half the Usos, and it's John Morrison. So you expect them to still have a fun match, and they did. John Morrison, who has just been a complete afterthought since returning to the company back in January, you know, they repaired him up with The Miz, and the two of them just became just another team on SmackDown, a show that has not been good in months, and they're part of a tag team that just is not overly exciting when it should be, but it's really not. And these guys, Morrison himself, he just has not felt special. But on this night, in this match, he felt pretty special. I would say Morrison was the MVP of this match. Although all three guys involved, they were very, very entertaining. We saw at one point, Jimmy Uso, he was laid out on a ladder that was bridged in the turnbuckle. We see Morrison go up top on the very top of the ring post, and he comes down with Starship Pain, collides right on Jimmy Uso. It was at this point when JBL on commentary compared John Morrison to a young Kurt Hennig, Mr. Perfect. JBL saw Morrison execute this flippy move and decided that this reminded him of Kurt Hennig. I don't know how he put that together. I don't recall Mr. Perfect ever hitting any moves like that, whether in the WWF, WCW, AWA, no matter where he was at. I never saw Kurt Hennig do shit like John Morrison does, but I don't know, somehow that made JBL think of it. We saw at one point Jimmy Uso later on, he was walking along the apron on the outside, and Kofi, who was outside there with him, had a ladder and just launched the ladder right into Jimmy Uso and knocked him off the barricade. Speaking of walking along things, we see Kofi up on the top rope on one side of the ring. Morrison was on the top rope on the other side of the ring, and so in order to get to Kofi, Morrison walks along the top rope and grabs Kofi and hits a Spanish fly off the top, crashing in the middle of the ring. And then Jimmy Uso, who was laid out on a ladder bridge on the outside, he gets back up, he gets back in the ring, goes up top, and hits a Uso splash down onto John Morrison. So, thought that was a really cool sequence, but Morrison walking along the ropes, I thought that was really cool. We saw the finish of this match. All three men are up on the ladders. There's two ladders in the ring. All three men are up. They're all vying for the championship. Now, of course, the championship are hooked up to the ceiling, but they're hooked up on this, I don't even know, it's basically a hook. It's a hook that's hooked up to another hook. It's just this thing that they use for their titles. So they're all vying for it, trying to pull it down, and all three men do. Kofi, Jimmy, and Morrison, they all pull it down. They all have their hands on it. And so now it's like, what are we going to do? There's confusion, who wins, all that kind of stuff. So they start punching and hitting on each other. Kofi and Jimmy, they start to beat down on Morrison. They give him a stereo headbutt, and that knocks Morrison down. He comes crashing. He crashes onto a ladder that was bridged in between the ladder in the ring and the ropes. But in doing so, Morrison crashed down along with holding the tag team title belts. And because he came down and technically unhooked the belts, that made him the winner. So he retains on behalf of himself and The Miz, still the SmackDown Tag Team Champions. I thought it was unique. It was a little goofy, it was a little silly, and I could understand some people saying that it kind of ruined the match for them. I wouldn't say it ruined the match for me. It was just a very different finish. It was a little hammy and a little, sports entertainment like, but for what the match was up until that point, and then this, I thought it worked for me. I thought it was a very creative, unique finish, and it was a interesting way to cap off what was overall a very fun match. A ladder match without a crowd is just weird. There were other big spots in the match that obviously would have worked even better had there been a crowd to cheer for it, but there was none. And the commentators, yelling at different points, it did not help. So, but the guys were kind of talking during the match. Jimmy Uso said some kind of line about flattening you like a pancake or something like that to Kofi, so I thought that was funny. But it's just weird having a ladder match, with all these guys doing all these high spots and big dives and shit, and there's no crowd there to cheer for it. So it's just a weird dynamic. But despite that, they still made it work and entertained me. A match that I guess kind of worked, but not really, at least not for me. Seth Rollins and Kevin Owens. This is a feud that has gone on for months now, and we're here at WrestleMania, and for better or worse, whatever this WrestleMania is, it is a good ending place for this feud, and it turns out that it looks like, at least on the surface, it was just that. It was the ending cap of this feud. It did not look like that at first because we had a disqualification finish, and it looked like that was going to be the finish of this match. We have Rollins and Owens, they're fighting on the outside, and Rollins gets the ring bell and just slams it right in Owens' face. The referee calls for the bell. The announcer awards the victory to Kevin Owens via disqualification, and Rollins proceeds to head out and leave. We almost got a disqualification finish at WrestleMania. Now, this isn't the first time they've teased some kind of false finish for a match at WrestleMania. If you remember back at WrestleMania 27, they teased a double countout finish in the main event for the WWE Championship between John Cena and The Miz. One of the many reasons I consider that match to be the worst main event in WrestleMania history. But, yeah, they teased that here, but Owens, he got back on the microphone, he called Rollins a bitch, baited him and egged him on to, get back in the ring and restart the match. Restarted as a no disqualification match, and that's what happened. Rollins got back in, he continued to beat down Owens, used a steel chair, used steel steps, all that stuff. It looked like he was about to dispose of Kevin Owens once and for all, until Owens got the ring bell for himself. He used the bell on Rollins, knocked him onto the announce table, and he proceeded to climb above the announce table on a huge hanging WrestleMania sign and came crashing down off the sign with, I guess, was an elbow drop, right down onto Seth Rollins, right through the announce table, throws Rollins back in the ring, hits him with a stunner, 1, 2, 3, Kevin Owens gets his big WrestleMania moment and defeats Seth Rollins, and hopefully puts a stamp, mark, and finality to this feud that peaked months ago. So, the match itself, it was good work. Rollins, he was talking a lot during the match and was talking a lot of shit, and that, plus the story of the match and the build-up and all that, it worked for what it was, but the DQ tease in the middle was stupid and lame. The match should have just been no DQ from the jump. It should have just been that from the beginning. I don't know why it wasn't, but a cool table spot from Kevin Owens, and he wins, and hopefully this is the end of the story. So good stuff there. Had another segment with Mojo Rawley, Gronk, and R-Truth. Mojo, he won the 24/7 championship. Who cares? We got Goldberg and Braun Strowman for the Universal Championship, a match that was originally supposed to be Goldberg and Roman Reigns, but like I mentioned, Roman Reigns, out of, caution and, safety for him, he has a compromised immune system, so him wrestling during a time of this pandemic and stuff, not the smartest decision, so he alone backed out of the match while at the taping. He came prepared to fight, but then, of course, like I said, the rumors of The Miz showing up not injured, but sick, that kind of played a role in Roman not wanting to wrestle on the show. So we had a replacement, and that replacement was Braun Strowman, who had no match on this WrestleMania card. I don't know what the plan would have been for him if it were not for Roman backing out, but, with Roman backing out, it became an opportunity for Braun Strowman, and that opportunity paid off with this match. So let's go through this match, shall we? 3 spears from Goldberg. Braun kicks out of all 3. Goldberg hits a 4th spear, gets up, signals for the jackhammer, goes for the jackhammer. Braun slips out of it. He proceeds to hit Goldberg with 3 power slams, standing power slams, and then he gets Goldberg up one more time, hits him with a running emphatic power slam, gets the 1, 2, 3, and Braun Strowman, for the first time in his career, wins the Universal Championship. A championship win and moment that should have came years ago, but years later, after several defeats, several embarrassing losses, and just becoming damaged goods who just will never go past a certain limit in this company, they still threw him a bone and gave him the win and the Universal Championship in this match. The match was what it should have been. Very short, very, hard-hitting. And, I'm glad a part-timer is not going to be champion for months on end before things can go back to normal and Roman can just win the championship from whoever, because, no matter who would have won this match, their fate is inevitable. They're going to lose it to Roman when the time is right for it. But, yeah, Braun, hey, good for him. A month ago, or a month and a half ago, or whatever, he won the Intercontinental Championship, his first singles championship win in his career. And now here at WrestleMania, in front of no one, he wins the Universal Championship for the first time. I can't get myself to care much, but hey, good for him. And then we get to the main event, The Undertaker and AJ Styles in a Boneyard match. The return of Big Evil, the American Badass version of The Undertaker, throughout this feud has been a very welcome change of pace for an Undertaker feud. And the presentation and look of this Boneyard match was quite fun. It was filmed in a literal boneyard. It looked like a grave site. We see a hearse pull up, druids come out, they bring out a coffin, a casket. It looks like the Undertaker is going to come out, but of course, it's AJ Styles. So he's calling for the Undertaker, "Where are you, Taker? Where are you, old man?" All that stuff. And we see, riding down the road on a motorcycle, see the Undertaker with his American Badass Big Evil attire. Got the gloves, got the shirt, got the bandana, all that. So he comes in, and he and AJ start to brawl, and of course, Undertaker's getting the best of him, beating him down all throughout the grave site, just beating AJ's ass. AJ gets, a few shots in, but overall, it's the Undertaker. It's all Taker. But it gets to a point where we finally see the emergence of Gallows and Anderson. They come up right in front of a barn where the lights shine, and out pop a bunch of druids who surround the Undertaker. Undertaker has to knock out all of them, and he gets through all of them. He takes out Gallows and Anderson, but from behind we see AJ Styles with a literal tombstone, a physical tombstone that he bashes over the Undertaker's back. He then, beats down Undertaker. He charges at him. They go crashing through a fence. He uses a shovel and just smashes it right across the back of the Undertaker, and Undertaker falls right into a grave, his own grave that AJ dug up for him. So AJ goes over to this tractor full of dirt that he's going to turn on and use to just unload all this dirt on the Undertaker's lifeless body, when we see the lights flash, and from behind, this really cool shot of the Undertaker standing right behind AJ Styles. The music, there's music playing in the background, swells up. It's a really cool image. So we see AJ, he's spooked. He climbs up on top of that barn that they were by originally. They're fighting up there. Undertaker's beating him down. Anderson reappears, and he gets tombstoned right on top of the barn. And then Undertaker goes back over to AJ, goozles him by the throat, chokes him, and gives him a choke slam off the barn right down to the ground, landing on that broken fence that they crashed through earlier. Undertaker, he's talking shit, saying like, "Hey, this is what you wanted, this is what you wanted, AJ," all that kind of stuff. He brings him over to the grave site. We hear AJ begging for the Undertaker, "Please don't bury me, please don't bury me," all that kind of stuff. And Undertaker shows some mercy. He's like, "Look, you brought the fight to me. You brought it better than anyone ever has. I'm not going to bury you." He even hugs AJ, reassures him it's going to be okay. He goes to walk away, turns his back, and then he turns right back around, and he just grabs AJ, and he just slams him right into the hole. Big boot, slams him right into the hole. He goes over by that tractor, puts the key in the ignition, turns it on, and the dirt just showers over AJ's dead body, and he's buried alive. And the Undertaker stands tall and I guess wins the match. He won. And there was a hilarious shot afterwards of AJ's hand sticking out from the dirt. It was hilarious. It was quite the match. Like I said at the beginning, it was one of, if not the best match that I've seen the Undertaker in years. The first match in years that I genuinely cared about seeing the Undertaker in. I had fun watching him in. It was a really unique match. I don't know if this would have been able to happen as is if it were, in a stadium with a whole bunch of fans and all that kind of stuff. And, at that match, maybe AJ would have pulled something great out of The Undertaker in that capacity, but, what this was pretty fun. I thought it was a very fun, unique match that these guys had. So, AJ losing, it was pretty obvious. It would have been nice to have, them throw AJ a bone, considering the fact that The Undertaker beat him in Saudi Arabia and cost him a match with Aleister Black back at the Elimination Chamber show. So it would have been nice for AJ to get some kind of revenge, but with AJ talking shit about Undertaker, calling him old, talking shit about his wife, I guess it made sense for The Undertaker to get the win in this match, and he did. But overall, it was fun, and it was a fun way to end night 1 of this extremely weird WrestleMania, and now we have night 2 tomorrow night, same time, mostly the same place, and on that show we will have Drew McIntyre challenging Brock Lesnar for the WWE title. We have John Cena and The Fiend in a fun house match. We have Edge wrestling for the first time in 9 years in a singles match against Randy Orton, last man standing, the end of possibly the best storyline in the entire company in recent months. I say possibly because it's also the end of another great storyline with Dolph Ziggler and Otis in a match. Charlotte, Flair, and Rhea Ripley for the NXT Women's Championship. So some big matches coming up tomorrow night. And a SmackDown Women's title match that involves Tamina Snuka. So it's not all perfect, but yeah. This show, this night, what I would rate it, I say a 7 out of 10. It was enough to get a 7 out of 10 for me. It was okay. It was a good effort on their part. This is the circumstances. This is what they have to do, and for what they had to do, I enjoyed it. I thought it was a good show, for the most part. Not perfect, not excellent, but it was good enough. It was a good effort on their part, solid effort, especially that ending. I was entertained. So we'll see what they can do tomorrow night for WrestleMania Night 2. Again, I miss the crowd. I really do. Maybe I'll talk more about that as we wrap up WrestleMania Night 2 tomorrow night. But yeah, but that's about it for me. Check back here again tomorrow night after WrestleMania Night 2. Another review. Will it be as long as this one was? Who knows? It could be even longer. I have no idea. But until next time, until tomorrow night, WrestleMania Part 2. Check you guys later.